lobby exists for one purpose, and that is building political will. And by that, I mean getting citizens to demand action on climate change. So we say our mission statement is creating political will for a livable world. And political will means that Congress is not free to do what they want. They need to do what their constituents want. So I hope that by the end of today, you'll understand the power that constituents have with Congress and why that's the best way to lobby. We have 8,000 plus members. It's north of 8,000 now, 230 chapters today, maybe north of that, and one bold plan. We are only asking Congress to do one thing, and it is this. It is to put a steadily rising price, revenue-neutral price on carbon. And I'm going to explain to you quickly why putting a price on carbon will change everything. And it's basically this. People think that using fossil fuels is cheaper than using clean energy. The problem is they are not factoring in what we call externalized costs. Examples of these costs that we incur, but we don't pay it when we buy fossil fuels, would be sea level rise, infrastructure loss, Florida having to move their wells inland because of saltwater intrusion, property loss, you can see it happening from sea level rise, cost of extreme weather, crop loss, that's a significant issue in Florida and elsewhere, sort of a decline in productivity of agriculture. And the geopolitical risk is a very costly, expensive one as well. But all those things we're paying for, but you don't think about it. So what we're saying is, if we put a price on the carbon content of fuels, a tax if you want to call it that, we call it a fee, and then it will make clean energy appear at its true cost. That it'll appear that it is cheaper. So once that happens, the minute something is a cheaper alternative, the world changes. And the entire economy will shift toward low carbon, no carbon sources of energy. That's what we believe. I'm going to get back to that in a minute. I say we believe it. This is a plan that was created by this gentleman, former Secretary George Shultz. And I'm going to tell you it's hard to read there. I'm going to tell you his resume in a nutshell. It is the most spectacular resume I've ever heard. He was Secretary of State under President Ronald Reagan, Secretary of Treasury, Secretary of Labor, Director of the Department of Office of Management and Budget. He was President of the Bechtel Corporation and Dean of Economics at University of Chicago. This guy knows what he's talking about. He is on the board of Citizens Climate Lobby, and he wrote the plan. He's the architect of this plan, along with economist Gary Becker, the late Gary Becker, who is shown here getting the Presidential Medal of Honor. Together they came up with this simple thing. Put a tax on carbon and give the money back to the people. The government keeps nothing. So that's why we don't call it a tax. Secretary Shultz says if the government doesn't keep the money, it can't be called a tax. That's sort of semantics. The two of them wrote this op-ed that was published in the Wall Street Journal, and there's copies of this probably in front of you, if not on the table. That's a pretty good summary of our plan, which you can read when you get home tonight. They laid it out in very simple terms. There's details that have to be threshed out, of course, but they give you the overall point. It's important to note that Secretary Shultz is a Republican. He is the elder statesman of the Republican Party, highly respected in Washington. So if you've heard all about this gridlock in Washington, this partisanship over climate change, he is helping us break it down, because the most prominent Republican living today is advocating for our plan. And when we go to Congress, that makes a big difference. The advantage of this plan are it's market-based. Instead of the government having to put in regulations and subsidies, we put the price on carbon and let the market work. And top economists, not just Secretary Shultz, but Secretary Hank Paulson, the former Republican Secretary of Treasury, he is all on board with putting a price on carbon. Greg Mankiw as well. So this is highly vetted. It's revenue neutral, it doesn't grow government. Technology neutral, we're not trying to say what the low carbon technology should be, because that's pretty hard to guess. But if we set the stage for it and let the market work, then the truly lowest cost technologies will emerge. And those will be low carbon if we have a price on carbon. And this last one is the one that gives me greatest hope, politically viable. When we go to Washington, or when you go to your congressman's district office here in Miami, this is well received by both parties. And we're making progress, and this can happen. It is our hope that in this coming Congress, which was just inaugurated last week in Washington, I was there for that, it is our hope in this Congress that we will get this bill to the floor. And it's going to surprise a lot of people. I'm probably not going to go over this now, but just want to let you know, in-depth economic research has been done on this, modeling out our plan. What will this do to the economy? We hired an organization called REMI, Regional Economic Model, Inc. They do tax modeling for governments, large corporations all over the country, and they came up with some astonishing forecasts when they modeled out our plan. It helps the economy, it creates jobs, and it grows domestic product, and the carbon emissions reductions that it creates are much more significant and faster than even what the EPA is proposing. So it works faster, cuts deeper, and it helps the economy. When we explain that in Congress, people sit up and take notice. Last month we did briefings for congressmen and their staff all over Capitol Hill. We packed the House we were turning away congressmen who were coming to hear the economists who did this report speak about it. So this is really getting noticed in Washington. And this is what it looks like when 600 Citizens Climate Lobby members go to Washington and have 512 scheduled meetings with almost every congressional office on the Hill to talk to them about this plan. All of these are citizens, paid their own way to Washington because they care about this issue. And that means a lot when you walk in and talk to Congress. So I want to let you know that the people in Citizens Climate Lobby are some of the most amazing people you'll ever meet. I mean, just in this room, we have amazing people. I don't know everyone here, but I can tell you, you meet professors, you meet doctors, engineers, you meet citizens doing all kinds of interesting things. And no matter what they're doing, they're just people who care passionately about this and are kind of giving of themselves to take care of this issue. And they're optimistic people and respectful. So for me, one of the joys of being involved is getting to know all these people. And so I wanted to pause and ask if you have questions